All right, welcome to Basketball Street Beat, episode 9. I'm your host, John Behrens.
I'm Joshua Perkins.
All right, what do you got for us, Josh?
All right, so Selection Sunday happened this past Sunday, and we are in March Madness. It is officially March Madness. The NCAA tournament will be starting up this week, and there's quite a few games that are on my radar in the very first round. Of course, our LSU Tigers are in at number 3 at the 3 seed. They'll be taking on Yale, and LSU is put on upset alert for this one because Yale can ball. But I do have a few upset alerts. Of course, Murray State led by the number 2 draft prospect John Morant. I got them defeating Marquette, despite Marquette having Marcus Howard, who is a John Wooden finalist. But here's a few picks. I got Nevada taking out Florida, Michigan, of course, over Montana, Virginia over Gardner-Webb. I got Ole Miss over Oklahoma, Wisconsin over Oregon. I got Kansas State over UC Irvine. In an upset special, I'm going to take St. Mary's over Villanova. Despite Villanova being the defending champions, Villanova has shown a bit of struggle this season. And St. Mary's really powered through, also knocking off Gonzaga in the conference title game. I got Purdue over Old Dominion. I'm going to take Iowa in the upset over Cincinnati. I'm going to take Tennessee over Colgate, of course. North Carolina over Iona. I'm going to take Washington over Utah State. Auburn over New Mexico State. Kansas over Northeastern. I'm going to take Ohio State over Iowa State. Houston over Georgia State. Seton Hall over Wofford. Kentucky over Abilene Christian. And there's some playing games going on right now. Gonzaga will be awaiting the winner out of Prairie View and Fairleigh Dickinson. Maryland will be awaiting the winner out of Belmont and, I believe, Temple. And Duke will be waiting on North Carolina Central and North Dakota State.
Okay, so question. Do we have a UMBC this year?
Well, hopefully hopefully Virginia won't be the victim of a UMBC again.
They play Garden Webb. And
I believe this is their very first NCAA tournament appearance in school history, I believe.
Okay.
But honestly, I don't think we'll have a Gardner-Webb. The number 1 seeds are very strong this season. Of course, Duke, they're not going to fall. I don't see North Dakota State nor North Carolina Central hanging with Duke at all due to the fact, of course, you got the top 3 players in the nation in Cam Reddish, R.J. Barrett, Zion Williamson, who's going to beat Duke. Mm-hmm. Of course, I don't see Iona beating North Carolina. I don't see Fairleigh Dickinson or Prairie View beating Gonzaga.
Okay, so you don't see a first round upset of a number 1 seed. So who would you pick to be your weakest number 1 seed?
The weakest number 1 seed, I would have to say, that's actually a hard one, because all number 1 seeds are pretty strong. The number 1 seeds are Duke, Gonzaga, North Carolina, and who is the last one?
Virginia.
That's a hard one. North Carolina's pretty strong. Duke's pretty strong. I would have to say Gonzaga.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that.
I would have to say Gonzaga. Virginia has shown a lot more strength this season. I would have to say Gonzaga. Especially after what happened in their conference tournament. Losing to St. Mary's. Though Gonzaga has played some very strong basketball this season, I would have to say Gonzaga would be my weakest number 1.
Yeah, for me, Gonzaga is also the weakest link of the number 1 seeds, just based on their past tournament history. To me, Gonzaga is a traditional Sweet 16, maybe Elite 8 team. They've only made it to the Final Four, I want to say, like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, Gonzaga, they usually don't get too deep into the NCAA tournament.
Even when they were arguably at their peak popularity with Adam Morris.
I remember Adam Morris, and he was He was a sharpshooter from 3-point land, and he didn't really show promise in the league. But that's another story for another day.
Yeah. So okay, the two conferences that have the most teams are the ACC and the SEC. Which one do you see running the table in this tournament, if anything?
A team I see running the tables, I would have to say, would be Texas Tech. They have improved over the years. They start off against Northern Kentucky. So I would say Texas Tech will be a team that can run the tables. I mean, they've really showed a lot of promise this season. Another team, and I know I'm sounding a little biased, would be LSU. I mean, this is their first time in the NCAA tournament since 2015, I want to say, 2014.
Yeah, something like that.
It's been a while. What's going to hurt them is not having Will Wade on the bench with them. That is what's going to hurt them, because Will Wade has been the cornerstone of their success as far as coaching is concerned. Another team to look out for, and I would say this team would be a Cinderella, would be Murray State at a 12 seed. Well, of course, obvious reason, Ja Morant, number 2 prospect in the NBA draft this season. Murray State would be a team, if they can knock off Marquette, and it's going to get harder as they go forward. That can be a team that can run the tables, and another team that can run the tables would be, I would have to say, another Cinderella, possible Cinderella would be St. Mary's.
Okay, other than Gonzaga, the other 3 number 1 seeds, first one to get knocked off.
Virginia. I would take North Carolina over Virginia any day.
Yeah, and I feel the same about Duke. I feel Duke is a Final Four team, unless they get shocked and surprised in the sweep. No, I would say the Elite Eight. They get as far as the Elite Eight with almost with ease, I want to say, because I don't see anyone in their bracket that has like a real.
I mean, a couple of teams to watch out for would be the Houston Cougars, also the Buffaloes, Buffalo Bison, I believe, or the Buffalo Bulls. I know they're coming out of the MAC.
Right. So, I mean, I think my pick for the Final Four would have to be Duke. I see Duke is the best shot at coming out of the East bracket.
Kentucky. I'll put Kentucky in there.
Kentucky, I don't know. Kentucky, but also they're in the same bracket as North Carolina. So
I mean, I could see Kentucky beating North Carolina.
They say that we can expect a lot of upsets this year, which, for me, being kind of more of a casual basketball fan, the more the merry. I love upsets.
I love upsets too.
So, but just based on watching what few teams I have watched this season, I see Duke coming out of the East, and the Midwest. I think Kentucky and North Carolina will ultimately face off for it. I don't have much hope in Kansas this year.
Not a lot. Kansas, they really struggled this season. I don't even see Kansas making the Elite Eight.
Though I have heard a lot of analysts talking about potentially Auburn making some noise.
Auburn will. I mean, Auburn is a team, especially with Bruce Pearl as their head coach. I mean, they have improved a lot, and they do have one of the best backcourts in the nation.
And honestly, just from my observation, another team to keep in consideration would also be Iowa State.
Honestly, I would have Ohio State upset Iowa State in the first round.
Really?
That's a bold prediction. Just
okay. All right. To each his own. Yeah. The West bracket, I'm not too sure. Like I said, Gonzaga has a history of choking in the later rounds.
Honestly, my Final Four, I'll put Michigan in there.
Michigan, yeah, I want to go with Michigan, but at the same time, with how they played down the stretch, I don't have that undying faith in Michigan either.
I actually have a lot of faith in Michigan. I mean, you look at their repertoire.
I would definitely put Michigan in there. I can actually see Buffalo getting to the Sweet 16, if not as far as the Elite Eight.
I can see it too, just like how Buffalo played throughout the stretch this past season. But
Uh,
I mean, like I said, Murray State's gonna make a
Murray
lot of
State.
noise,
Yeah, I do like Murray
and
State.
so I mean, look out for Murray State. So I mean, the winner of Marquette and Murray State is gonna go against the winner of Florida State and Vermont, and so either way it goes, a top seed is gonna catch the upset bug. It's either gonna be Marquette or Florida State.
And Vermont finished pretty strong too, and they came back to win their, I want to say, their conference and beat out, or they won their tournament, their conference tournament.
Here's the thing: when people fill out their brackets, like the bracketology, I mean, barely anybody gets the whole bracket right.
Right.
You would have to be a genius and really know your basketball in order to get the brackets right, because so many upsets happen and the unexpected happens. So many people in Vegas lose money. So many people win a whole lot of money. I'm just saying, if you're betting with the bookies in Vegas, this is the tournament to do it, because you're either going to win a lot of money or you're going to lose a lot. Either way it goes, it's going to be a big payday for those bookies out there in Vegas.
Yeah, I also want to point out that what just kind of feels a little weird is the fact that Indiana is not in the tournament, and neither is Wisconsin.
Wisconsin is in the tournament.
Oh, they are?
They're going against Oregon in the first round.
Okay.
Wisconsin is a fifth seed.
Okay. Well, Indiana is not in it, and Syracuse is an 8 seed.
Well, I mean, Syracuse, they had their ups and downs this season, but they did show they did show a lot of promise and a lot of grit down the stretch. And so I feel that Syracuse did deserve the at-large bid, and I do see them knocking off Baylor in the first round. Jim Boeheim, he has a lot of experience coaching in the NCAA tournament, and I do see Syracuse using that experience against Baylor and going forward.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's just kind of okay. No, Syracuse really like an 8 seed. That's the best they can do. And then, like I said, Indiana's not in it at all.
Well, I mean, Indiana, they lost like 15, 16 games this season, so.
Well, I grew up in the Bobby Knight era, so.
So you're accustomed to seeing Indiana in the NCAA tournament every season.
Yeah, and not just that, but being like a top, like a 2, 1, 2, 3 seed.
Well, ever since Coach Crean left Indiana, it's been a downhill spiral for the Hoosiers.
Mm-hmm.
And then Coach Crean, he's feeling the growing pains at Georgia right now. So, a team that we should look out for, I would say, is Nevada. But at the same time, if Nevada does beat Florida, they'll have to run into Michigan. And so, as far as getting Nevada to make noise, that's probably a no-go unless they can really pull off a huge upset on Michigan.
All right. So, I don't know. It just kind of, it should be an interesting tournament this year.
Yeah,
because there wasn't a lot of bubble teams coming in. I did realize that. So it was more clear cut this year.
this is the most clear cut I've seen in recent memory.
Yeah, although like Colgate, it's like the toothpaste. Oh.
I just hope Michigan State doesn't get knocked off by a 15th seed again. I remember a couple years back when they had Denzel Valentine and they got knocked out by Middle Tennessee State in the first round.
Now you did talk about Murray State, and you did briefly mention St. Mary's, but do we have a Chicago Lyola?
In Chicago, Loyola, let's see, were they last year? They were a 13 seed? Or
They were
12
12 or 13 seed, and they made a run to the Final Four.
Well, other than Murray State, which I wouldn't call them a Chicago Loyola because Murray State is being looked at as a team that can make a lot of noise. I wouldn't necessarily call them a huge Cinderella until we start getting into like the Elite Eight Final Four phase. But I would say a Chicago Loyola, a couple teams to look out for. I would say one, St. Mary's. Also, I would try and take a look at.
I really can't say St. Mary's though, because they're often in the tournament. Chicago Loyola is a team that you just don't see too often. So,
well, if we're gonna go about teams that we don't see too often.
Let's
take a look at teams like.
I'm talking about a real true underdog like George Mason.
Or we can probably go with Gardner Webb, but that's going to be a long shot.
That will be.
I mean, Gardner Webb is starting off against a buzzsaw.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can talk about maybe UC Irvine. They're going against Kansas State, but Kansas State is a team that dominated the Big 12 this season, and Kansas State made it all the way to Elite 8 last season.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking to go on a big run this season as well. I don't really see UC Irvine knocking off Kansas State. Or will they? I mean, you never know.
So what about like a team like Old Dominion, or what about this Colgate?
Well, Colgate,
Toothpaste College.
I mean, there's no doubt that Colgate is a team that can probably be like Chicago Loyola, but you look at Tennessee, you got guys like Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield. I don't see Colgate overpowering Tennessee at all by any means.
Fair enough. I guess we can wait and see who comes out of these playing games to really kind of gauge a real underdog, because some of the playing games are for spots that aren't, like number 16. There's a playing game who will end up facing, what is that, 16 Maryland? Yeah.
I think that playing game is going to be Belmont, and I know Belmont's in the playing game. Wait, Belmont and Temple.
Yeah, and there's another mid seed playing game that will go.
It's Arizona State and St. John's.
Okay. I'm familiar with St. John's when it comes to. Oh, here they are, right here. Yeah. Yeah, so that would be the 11 seed play in.
But the low seed playing games, I mean, you win the playing game, congratulations, you're about to go against a buzzsaw. Because I feel sorry for the winner of North Dakota State, North Carolina Central. You gotta go against, the Monstars of Duke. I'm going to feel kind of sorry for Prairie View and Fairleigh Dickinson because, I mean, you win that game, you gotta go against Gonzaga. The only silver lining for Fairleigh Dickinson or Prairie View is that Gonzaga is probably the weakest number 1 seed. And when I say that they're the weakest number 1 seed, it's not saying much.
Yeah,
they're still a buzzsaw team in their own right.
They did they spent some time as the number 1 team in the country this year.
They did. I mean, they've had a lot of big games, a lot of big victories. I mean, this is a team that can play. They play very well.
So, out of those playing teams, are there any that kind of stand out to you? I know you said of the 16 seed ones is good luck.
Yeah, but, good luck to the 16 seed. But the 11,
there is a pair of 11 seed playing games that probably have a little bit more realistic chance of doing something.
Okay, well, out of the 11 seed playing games, I mean the 11 seed that jumps out to me is the Belmont Bruins. I mean, I'd say Belmont. I mean, during the regular season, they did knock off Murray State until, of course, they met up in the Ohio Valley championship game. But I would say a player to look out for Belmont would be Dylan Windler. He's a senior, 6'8", 200 pounds from Indianapolis. He's averaged 21.4 points a game, and he's averaged 10.7 rebounds a game this season. And he's a guy that can give John Morant a run for his money. He did it during the season, and I feel that he's a guy that can help Belmont run the tables in the NCAA tournament. I do see them taking out Temple, and I do see them giving Maryland a lot of noise. And I can, if Belmont does beat Temple, I can see Belmont upsetting Maryland in the NCAA tournament. And I can see Belmont being a team that can run the tables, depending on how they do in the second round and on up.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, of course, they'll have to run into LSU. If LSU can beat Yale, for LSU to be successful in the tournament, they'll have to put the off-the-court distractions to the side.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, the elephant in the room will wait.
Also, some of the problems they have had against teams with a more stingy defense.
That is very true.
Florida's beaten them twice now.
And Florida's got to go against Nevada. And honestly, yeah, Florida's a tough team. In Florida, they have shown that they can, play some good basketball this year, that they can play with some of the best. I don't think they'll beat Nevada. I got Nevada beating Florida. And I'm not saying it because I hate Florida. Well, yeah, I'm kind of saying because I hate Florida. But at the same time, Nevada does have a stingy team, and Nevada's a team they can score. So
finally, what about some of the teams that made some surprises and won their regular season conferences, like Kansas State and Utah State?
Well, I mean, of course, Gardner Webb getting their first tournament appearance, winning their conference. Would have to also say, can you go down the page? Go down. Abilene Christian, out of the Southland Conference, they gotta go against Kentucky, and that's gonna be a buzzsaw game for them. Northern Kentucky, I believe this is my first time seeing Northern Kentucky in this AA tournament as well.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, you have Nevada, who was ranked for most of the season, I'm going to say, and didn't they ultimately end up losing the conference to Utah State?
They did. They went to Utah State and lost.
They did, I believe, win their conference tournament.
Right.
So what does that mean for the Utah State? They beat out the only ranked team from their conference to win that division.
Well, Utah State, I mean, of course, they're coming in with a chip on their shoulder, but they're going against a very tough Washington team, who's relatively one of the more feisty teams out of the Pac-12. I mean, Utah State at this point, they shouldn't worry about Nevada unless they meet up again for some odd reason. But, I mean, if Utah State wants to prove that they are the dominant ones from their conference from the Mountain West, they would have to go ahead and try and run the tables in this tournament.
Mm-hmm. Another one was Kansas State, which kept Kansas from winning the conference for the first time in 15 years.
And I know it felt good for the Wildcats. I know it had to feel good because Kansas has been giving them the Mississippi Blues all for the past 15 years.
Now, the other one was, of course, LSU winning the SEC, which I never really understood the seeding process, to be honest with you, because the LSU who won the SEC, yet Kentucky and Tennessee both got higher seedings.
Well, the reason why is because, I mean, LSU got eliminated in the quarterfinals. I mean, I think Tennessee, Kentucky, they face off in the finals, I believe. No, wait, I take that.
No, it was Auburn. Auburn and Tennessee faced off in the final, and Auburn won pretty convincingly.
So, I mean, I feel that with Tennessee making it further than LSU in the SEC tournament, and Tennessee playing consistent basketball throughout the regular season, I feel like it got brought into consideration for Tennessee being a 2 seed. For the longest, Tennessee was being looked at as a 1 seed until they lost to Kentucky on the road, and then they lost to LSU, and then they lost to Auburn twice. So, but still, I mean, look at how Tennessee has played this season with Coach Rick Barnes. I mean, I would have put Tennessee higher than LSU as well, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it looks like it's going to be an exciting March Madness. It is probably the most look forward to tournament.
I'm definitely looking forward to it, though I'm going to miss most of the games because of my work schedule. And, you know, a lot of these managers, they know that March Madness is in the air, and they're going to be like, well, y'all going to be here. And we ain't showing no games, so, yeah.
Okay, well, I think we've talked enough about college basketball.
On to the NBA?
Yes, and we'll get to that after this. All right, welcome back to Basketball Street Beat, and we're getting into the NBA, which, quite honestly, it doesn't seem like there's been much of a narrative change as of late. We are getting closer to the playoffs, and it seems like the 8 teams projected to make the playoffs, quite honestly, a few weeks ago are on course to meet those projections. So the top teams are the way things stand right now, and they'll probably hold up are Milwaukee, Toronto, and Philadelphia.
Well, with Philadelphia, there's a couple teams breathing down their neck. The Indiana Pacers are a game and a half behind. Boston is 2.5 games behind Philadelphia. So I mean, with about 20 games left in the regular season, and things can change. The West, Golden State, Denver, and Houston. Golden State and Denver have already clinched playoff berths. As far as Houston with a 3 seed, Portland's right behind them, a game behind them. San Antonio is only 2.5 games behind Houston, so San Antonio could probably run the tables. A team that who's had kind of an up and down year, San Antonio can run the tables and probably be a 3 seed.
And I just want to make a correction. There's on average 12 games left.
12 games?
Yeah. So anyone who's like 3 games or more are pretty much out.
Yeah, the Pelicans have been eliminated. Memphis has been eliminated. Dallas has been eliminated. And of course, Phoenix has been eliminated, which is no surprise. Out of the East, of course, Chicago, Cleveland, and New York. I mean, they've all lost over 50 games. The teams that are still mathematically in, I mean, Atlanta is, I want to say, they are 10.5 games out of 8th place. Washington still actually has a fighting chance. They're 4.5 games out. Charlotte is 2.5 games out, and Orlando is right behind Miami at a game and a half. Out of the West, I mean, it's pretty, it's from 8th place to LA, who is like the bottom team, who is still mathematically in playoff contention. LA is 9.5 games out of 8th place. Safe to say they're not going to the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think
so. LeBron's going to have to sit this offseason out. Minnesota is 8.5 games out. Sacramento is pretty much 6 games out. So pretty much, as far as the top 8 teams, which is Golden State, Denver, Houston, Portland, San Antonio, OKC, Utah, and LA Clippers, which that was a mouthful. That's pretty much going to be the 8 that's going to be in the playoffs. I don't see Sacramento catching up, but we have seen a lot of improvement out of Sacramento. A team that really surprised me as well this season is the Brooklyn Nets, who have been relatively poor over the past few seasons, but ever since acquiring D'Angelo Russell, I mean, they've turned over a new leaf. Now Brooklyn is pretty much in the driver's seat to be in the playoffs. But with the East being so tight, and the East has always been a tight race for the playoffs. I mean, you look at between Miami and Orlando, it's like that's a game and a half. Miami's at the 8th seed right now. So anything can happen in the East. So the East is still, a barroom fight for playoff contention.
Yeah. So what do you think about Milwaukee being the top seed? That is a bit unusual.
Well, honestly, I mean, if you look at the progression of the Bucks over the past couple of seasons, it was something that, and to me, even last season when Milwaukee got eliminated in the first round, they really put up a fight against the Boston Celtics. The rise of the Milwaukee Bucks, especially having Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak, I feel that a number 1 seeding, a number 1 caliber seeding would be inevitable in the Bucks' expense. So the Bucks being a number 1 seed, doesn't surprise me considering how well the Bucks have played this season. Toronto is a team 50-21, of course. That's not a surprise to me, having Kawhi Leonard, Kyle Lowry, Danny Green, Serge Ibaka. Philly, I mean, you look at who Philly got. You got Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris. So those 3 teams at the top. What did surprise me, a team that I really had a lot of hopes for, that I thought was going to be like a top 2 seed, would be the Boston Celtics, considering who they have. But I said it before, and I'm going to say it again. The reason why Boston has struggled this season, they're not reaching the standard, is because you have a lot of alpha egos on that team who don't want to take a decrease in their role for the better of the team. The reason why Golden State is a number 1 seed in their conference is because you have a lot of stars that are willing to take a decrease in their role. I mean, look at Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant has turned down teams who were willing to give him top dollar to stay with Golden State. He took a pay cut to stay in Golden State because he wants to win.
Mm-hmm.
Until Boston can put their egos to the side, Boston will not win a title. Boston will not make a run in the playoffs. I mean, they're skilled. They're going to win a couple. They're going to win, probably their opening series. But, I mean, if they have to have their opening series, they're going against the Indiana Pacers. And probably the only reason why I would give Boston, I would say Boston would beat Indiana in the opening series of the playoffs is due to the simple fact that Indiana does not have Victor Oladipo. He injured his knee. He's out for the season.
Yeah.
So that would probably be the dying chance I give Boston. But I don't see Boston making a huge run in the playoffs because nobody could put their ego to the side.
The way I see it is I think really it comes down to this has been the Kyrie Irving experiment, and it has not turned out well.
No, I mean, there have been some good things that came out of it. I mean, of course,
clearly he's their best player, but to call him a leader of the team is kind of stretching it.
Well, I mean, on paper, on the surface, it may make it seem like he is the leader on that team. But honestly, Al Horford is. I mean, he's the most experienced. He's been in the league longer. I mean, he is that veteran guy that the young guys should go to. With Kyrie Irving, I mean, he's still relatively young. I don't even think he's 30 yet.
No, he's like 27, I think.
I think so. And so, I mean, I feel that Kyrie will have to go to another team to be like an undisputed leader. I mean, I feel that Kyrie has to work on some leadership skills before he can be an undisputed leader of a team. I mean, and not only that, Boston has a young head coach in Brad Stevens. So it kind of makes leadership kind of shaky out there for that franchise. And Danny Ainge can only do so much.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel that we kind of started seeing that fall in Boston after they let go of Isaiah Thomas.
Okay, so out of the West, I feel like we're probably still talking Golden State, right?
Right.
Because some are saying that the Denver Nuggets are just not ready to challenge.
They're not ready to challenge Golden State for the throne.
And whatever.
And honestly, if the playoffs started today, Denver will have to go against the Utah Jazz. And I would probably take Utah in a 7-game series against Denver.
Fair enough.
In a 7-game series, I'll take Utah over Denver.
Yeah. And I don't know what happened to Houston, but they're not the same team they were last year, despite being the same team they were last year.
True. They're not as dominant as they were last season.
I mean, last season they won 67 games.
And, I mean, if the playoffs start today, they'll go against Oklahoma City. And honestly, I would actually give Oklahoma City a chance. I can actually say Oklahoma City will probably defeat Houston in a 7-game series.
I could buy that.
Because, see, when you go into playoffs, I mean, okay, so, for example, out of the East, like, say if you have Milwaukee and Toronto, I can honestly say I could probably take Milwaukee in a 1-game. But to put Milwaukee in 7 games with Toronto, that's a different story. The same thing with Houston and Oklahoma City. Houston can win that 1 game, but when you want to talk about 7 games, considering the fact that Houston is not the same dominant team they were last season, that's when you got to put into perspective. Oklahoma City has turned more dominant. I mean, you got Russell Westbrook and Paul George, who have turned into pretty much Cheech and Chong, yin and yang. So,
well, I think I like the playoff matchups they got right now. I think obviously the West is pretty much set. The East has a little bit of wiggle room for somebody to sneak in at the number 8 seed, but overall, it seems like the playoff teams are pretty much set right now with, on average, 12 games to go. Should be interesting. I'm more intrigued by the teams in the East than I am the West because
it's a much tighter race, and it's just, you don't know.
I'm giving the West to the Warriors until someone somehow beats them.
I feel that a couple of teams that can give the Warriors a run would be, of course, the Rockets. The Rockets have shown that they can beat the Warriors. And also, I would have to say Oklahoma City.
Fair enough.
Those are 2 teams who I feel that can dethrone the Warriors.
Yeah, okay. The Bucks, I think, are the best team in the Eastern Conference, but I think the Raptors are right behind them. However, I've said for many years I'm waiting for the Raptors to actually do something.
This might be the season. I mean, this is the window is right now because there is no guarantee Kawhi Leonard's coming back after this season.
No. And I just don't believe in Philadelphia at this point.
Why not?
I don't know. I think.
I mean, if you look at all the pieces they have, you don't believe in them.
I don't believe they're polished enough.
True. I mean, because they started, getting into that success area. Like, they used to be one of the worst teams in the league, and now all of a sudden, like Joel Embiid been saying for the past couple of seasons, trust the process. And I feel that Philadelphia is still in that process. So I have to agree with you because I feel if you give them like another season, as a team to play together, I feel that Philadelphia can be that team that can make a run for the title.
Yeah.
They just wouldn't be this season.
I have Philadelphia getting to the second round, but not too much further.
Talking about the Eastern Conference semifinals?
Yeah.
I can actually see them reaching the Eastern Conference finals this season. I just don't see them as a team that
It's possible.
I'm going to be honest. If you put Philly in a 7-game series with Boston, I got Philly beating Boston this season.
Yeah,
I got Philly beating Boston. Philly can beat Boston this season. Yeah, they're not a team that can make it to the finals yet, that can win a title yet. Like I said, if you give them another season or two, they can win a title. It's all a process. Like this season, they can go to Eastern Conference Finals, and they can probably make it to possibly, depending on how Toronto does. I can see Philly beating Boston, but I don't see them beating Toronto.
Personally, I think it's going to be Milwaukee, Toronto for the conference finals, with Philadelphia having an outside chance.
Well, like I said, it's going to take some tough team basketball for Philadelphia to make a lot of noise.
Right, because I really don't feel like they're that polished of a team just yet, and they did just acquire Tobias Harris. So, I feel like they could be a better team next year.
Especially with Tobias Harris being settled into the system, and if they can keep all their players. But the East, I say, all right, if we had the NBA Finals right now, I would say Golden State versus Toronto. Bam.
Okay.
Golden State versus Toronto. And Toronto will actually have a fighting chance at beating Golden State. They can have a fighting chance.
All right. I like Giannis in the Bucks, but okay.
I like Kawhi and the Raptors.
Fair enough. All right. That seems to be it for this episode of Basketball Street Beat. I'm John Behrens.
I'm Joshua Perkins.
You can catch us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and AISportsNetwork.com. This is AI Sports Network Productions signing out.